Can you connect any dots between Victoria Nuland saying we have a nasty surprise for Mr. Putin and the attack on the Crocus concert hall?
Well, let's put the foundation where I think it needs to start from.
Go ahead.
2014. I think there's ample evidence based on New York Times reporting that the United States and CIA have been deeply involved in the direction of the war from day one. Some would say that Victoria Nuland and other folks, Mark Milley, were directing the war. I mean, Mark Milley wasn't there in 2014, but Nuland was. And so what I'm saying is everything let me be careful here because I don't want to get you or me in trouble. Everything we've seen transpire since 2013, 2014 was a construct created by the neocons for purposes of moving Ukraine out from Russian influence into the EU sphere of influence and essentially becoming a resource, I'll just say resource hog, a nation which would be essentially carved up and used resource-wise by the Europeans, both avoiding use of Russian oil and gas and theoretically collapsing the Russian Republic. Sorry. But that's where it starts. So if you look at recent reporting, and Jack Prosobic and I have talked about this on his show about, we were correct about a lot of the things we've been saying about this issue, about CIA being involved, Victoria Nuland. So if you accept the premise of where we started, you accept the premise of the New York Times reporting, which I'm often skeptical of, but in this case, I think they're accurate. I think they were told what to say. They were given information about the CIA bases and CIA activities. Then Nuland was the architect not only of the foundation of how we started, but those things that she said in Kiev, where she said Mr. Putin's going to get nasty surprises. Well, he got some nasty surprises, and the guys who did the nasty surprise were heading for the border near Kursk and Belgorod. So I don't know. I'm a retired intelligence officer, but those pieces seem to be kind of pointing in a certain direction.
Your former colleagues and their mentality, the mentality of the intelligence community.
Yeah.
CIA, MI6, maybe even Mossad. You're familiar with all this. You were part of that for a good part of your career. You worked with those people. You probably still have friends there. Is there a Jack Devine mentality there that would allow for the slaughter of innocent civilians?
Judge,
now, I don't want to blame Jack. I'm just using that as
I understand what you're saying.
That end of the intelligence community, the operative end, the dark side of the intelligence community. Would Judge, Americans and British allow, by indifference or by active planning, the slaughter of young Russian people at a concert?
We, as a Western intelligence conglomerate, have allowed for the death of civilians since I've been in, and it became more severe after 2008, after Obama came in. Obama was the first guy who ever, I think, openly assassinated U.S. citizens. Anwar al-Awlaki,
right?
And I still believe, and I think you and I have spoken about this, there's nothing in the Constitution that permits the U.S. government to kill people even overseas. I think that was something that was indeed a war crime, and Obama should be held.
Correct, and agreed. We have spoken about it. We have written about it. It was reprehensible, but he'll be scot-free on it, even though there's no statute of limitations. But
your question, I think there's a number of folks like Jack Devine who would gladly just go do something if they thought it scored what they believe policy points relating to a specific implementation of a destabilization of a country.
All right. Here's Maria Zakharova, number 19, Chris. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman yesterday.
In order to deflect suspicion from this very collective West, from Washington, London, Berlin, which literally discussed in direct text, as I said, possible tourist attacks in our country, Paris and other NATO countries, they had to find something, anything, some explanation. So they resorted to ISIS, took this trump card out of their sleeve, so to speak, and the White House, together with the State Department, declared at the Maidstad that Ukraine had nothing to do with it. End quote. On the basis of what data? On the basis of what information did they draw that conclusion? It is completely unclear. Only one thing is clear. They began to excuse the Kiev regime in order to excuse themselves, because everyone understands perfectly well that there is no independent Kiev regime without Western financial support and military aid to this regime.
I think the last statement she made, Tony, if you'll allow me, is the most significant. They began to excuse the Kiev regime in order to excuse themselves, because everyone understands perfectly well that there is no independent Kiev regime without Western financial support and military aid to that regime.
Yeah. So, well, look, let's just look at how the messaging was done on the attack from the U.S. linking to Ukraine. The United States was the biggest defender in saying, oh, there's no indication Ukraine was involved in the attack. Really? You're speaking for the Ukrainians? Think about this. We, the United States, speaks for Ukraine all the time. And last time I checked, they're not Texas, they're not Iowa, they're not a state of the United States, they're not Puerto Rico, and yet somehow we are speaking for them. So judge for yourself, dear viewer, if you think that her statement is correct relating to who actually speaks for Ukraine. And it's very interesting that she and yeah, I think the fact that we have resources that we've been providing, and again, I'm on the record saying I'm not for that 61 billion they want to send over there, because it's going to be used for the same stupid stuff to achieve nothing of significance within the context of stability for the region. I think she's correct, and at this point, I think there's a regime change coming. I think Zelensky's days are numbered. I think he's just not the good puppet that he used to be. As cute as he is in olive drab, I think they're looking for someone who would do a better job of acting as the president of Ukraine.
All right. Last topic. President Macron has been threatening to send troops to Romania
to
prepare to enter Ukraine. First he said 20,000. Then first he said 2,000. Then he said 20,000. Then he was back to 2,000. Chris, can you play that tape, please?
We are
convinced that Russia's defeat is essential for security and stability in Europe. What's at stake right now is, on the one hand, the war in Ukraine, meaning Ukraine's ability to endure any new Russian offensive or threats in the coming months, but also the ability of Europeans to define their own collective security. There is no consensus right now about sending in ground troops in an official, endorsed and sanctioned manner. But in reality, nothing should be ruled out. We will do whatever it takes to ensure that Russia cannot win this war.
Nothing should be ruled out. After that, he said 2,000. Then he mused at 20,000, as long as they were joined by another 40,000 from other NATO countries. Then he's back to 2. What will happen, in your view, if let me finish? If 20,000, if 2,000 French troops show up in Ukraine, wouldn't they be in Putin's crosshairs immediately?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, Judge, that's why Macron's saying this, because there have been significant strikes by the Russians in so-called volunteer zones where foreign troops were attacked and killed. I think right now Macron is kind of letting the public in on the fact that French have been fighting there already. French have a French Foreign Legion and other fighters, I think, that have been there more than advising. I think they've been out there doing actual combat. So I think this is almost like he's trying to create conditions for the French public to not freak out when they find out French Foreign Legion's been there, and create conditions for more. It's like, yeah, we've been there, and we want to put some more in. But I can tell you this, based on everything I've read and looked at, nobody else in the EU is digging this. Nobody wants to do it. The Germans are against it. I think for all the right reasons. I think the Polish are reticent, and this is the French going on their own. And I could say some really bad things about the French right now regarding their war fighting capability, but I won't, because I know we want to be serious this time of the morning. But the bottom line is Macron is looking to try to involve NATO. NATO is not digging it. NATO's saying, yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. But I think as much as anything, this is Macron trying to cover his own butt, because they got people there right now. By the way, not only the French, everybody's got folks on the ground there. We've got folks on the ground there. They don't want to talk about it, but think about all these high-tech weapon systems. This is why the Germans won't deploy their latest missile system, because the Germans recognize the moment you deploy this high-tech weapon system on behalf of Ukraine, you're going to have Germans there. Germans are going to get killed. So other European nations are a little bit smarter than the French are about this. But I think Macron is way out of his element here. But I think he's doing it because I think he has to say something to the French people to prepare them for what's about to come regarding French involvement.
Last question.
Yeah.
Would he not, obviously not legally, but just politically, want or need Joe Biden's approval before he put troops on the ground in Ukraine?
Well, yeah. It would be a definite escalation for an official above-board deployment. All these countries we're talking about all have their clandestine and special operations nonsense going on. I mean, look, as you said, I was part of it. I've seen it. I've been involved. With that said, it's a complete different ball game if the French put, the 13th Regiment de Dragones Parachutistes, they're one of their actual special operations units, on the front line to go kill people. That's a different ball game. And I can tell you from the comments Russia has made, they're going to kill them. As a matter of fact, there'll be a priority to be killed, because they're going to be fresh. They're going to be coming in to do things. Macron tried to soften his judge by saying, "Oh, no, these are going to be support troops. We're going to put them in the rear, so Ukrainian troops could go to the front." I don't buy any of that. This will be an instant escalation. I think this is why the EU and NATO is saying we're not going to do that. And I don't think, and he would want. I think he floated that balloon with Biden. And Biden said, "Do whatever you want, but we're not going." And I think that's not the right answer he was looking for.